Hello everyone, welcome back to the Anatomy Lab. Today we are going to be taking a look at the neuron, a very specialized type of cell, which is the functional cell of the nervous system. So this is the cell that's going to be able to send very fast electrochemical signals from one place to another using these long extensions that you can see here. So to get started though, as we were just talking about, this cell is very different from our typical type of cell. I mean, we've talked about mostly the hypothetical cell, it's just like a blobby cell with all the typical organelles inside. But if you're going to imagine that general organization, what you're going to be looking for is this region. This region right here is called the cell body. And you might also call this the soma at some point, but if you look inside of the soma or cell body, you'll see the things that we can recognize. Like over here, the big blob is the nucleus with the nucleolus inside. You can see the pancakes, which is the Golgi apparatus with the vesicles on the outside, the mitochondria, and then even some amount of the smooth and rough endoplasmic reticulum. So, I mean, everything that we've come to know, this is mostly where you're going to find it. But as you can see, there are quite a few other things on this neuron as well. So to take a look, you can see that you have these small extensions over here. Now, although it doesn't show the whole thing, these are smaller and shorter than our long singular tail, and these over here are called dendrites. So dendrites are important because this is where you're going to be able to receive signals from other neurons. So although not showing it very well, I mean, this is where other neurons will be able to synapse and communicate with this neuron. Whether it's going to inhibit or stimulate this neuron, I mean, this is one of the primary places where the neurons will do so. But, I mean, if you look closely, you actually do see these other parts right here. And I know they look like dendrites, but do you see this one especially? Do you see how there's a separation between this and this? I mean, this is another neuron. This is the end of another neuron, which is communicating or synapsing with the cell body, but also, as you can see over here at least, the dendrites as well. So, if this neuron were to be stimulated enough, though, it is then going to send its own signal. And the way that it will send its signal is down its long tail, which is the axon. Now, to break down the axon, you can see that you have this very long extension, but there are some specific parts to it as well. Over here, you can see a slight change in the shape and organization of the cell. This right here is the axon hillock. And this is important because, number one, this is the beginning of the axon, but this is also where you're going to have the action potential or depolarization or just neural stimulus be initiated from. So if this neuron is stimulated enough, at the axon hillock, it will then start its own signal. And that will send its signal all the way down the axon, which if you look over here, you have these ends of the axon called axon terminals. And then although not shown very well, you do typically have these little knobby structures, which honestly, you can see over here a lot more clearly. This right here would be found at the ends of the axon. That's where you'd find your synaptic knobs. And this knobby structure, I mean, it looks like a doorknob. This is the synaptic knob, which will be able to release neurotransmitters on the effector, whether it's a neuron, whether it's a muscle, whether it's a gland. These will be able to synapse and communicate with the next structure. Now, besides the axon itself, you might have actually also noticed some things that are on top of the axon. So if you look here, you can actually see this bubbly structure that's insulating the axon. And just to be clear, these are vital for a neuron to be able to effectively send signals. I mean, typically neurons can send signals without it, but this allows you to send it much more quickly, as in like sometimes 10 to sometimes even, I think, 30 times faster. This is important for neuron or normal neuronal function. And these structures that are insulating the neuron are called myelin sheaths. So if you look closely, it's a sheath because it basically insulates the neuron. And basically what this is just a cell wrapping its cell membrane around the axon over and over and over again. And that's what's going to keep the inside insulated. But also, just to point out, you do have some open areas which are between the myelin sheaths. This right here is going to be called a node of Ranvier. And these are important because you do start the signal here, but it can't get all the way down here without having some open spaces, because this is where you renew the action potential or the neural stimulus. So you start it here, it travels through here pretty quickly, but then you start it again here or renew it. And it does that over and over and over again, and it basically jumps from one place to another. That's allowing it to send it very fast though. So these myelin sheaths are very important for neurons to be able to function, and that's mostly the structures of the neuron. But I do want to point out one last thing, because if you look closely, do you see this myelin sheath? Do you see what's on this myelin sheath? This is actually a nucleus. And in fact, this cell, or this myelin sheath, is a cell, along with this one, and so on. Each of these myelin sheaths is a cell. But just to be clear, they are not neurons. These cells are called glial cells, or otherwise known as neuroglial cells. So specifically in the peripheral nervous system, the myelin sheaths are going to be formed by singular cells. This is called a Schwann cell. So just be careful, because the structure that we would call this is the myelin sheath. But if we ever did, ask about what cell this is called a Schwann cell. And just to be clear, there are other cells that also myelinate the neurons, but in the central nervous system, it's called oligodendrocytes. And that's not going to be seen on this model. So, for now, I suppose that's about it. So you can see the neuron, all of its major structures, and then also some helpful associated structures as well. But with that said, that should be just about it for the neuron. So thank you for listening. Good luck with your studying, and I'll see you all next time.